Commander Vexthari stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the blue-green planet Kepler-4, 42b, grow larger on the viewscreen. His silver armor gleamed under the ship's lights, and his forearms moved with practiced grace across the control panels. The Zephyrian Empire had ruled this part of space for over 3,000 years, and Vexthari had never seen a species that could challenge their might. The planet below held rich deposits of quantum crystals, materials that powered faster than light travel. The Empire needed these crystals, and they would take them. It was the natural order of things. Strong species conquered. Weak species served. Those who showed mercy died out long ago. "Commander, we are receiving distress signals from the surface," reported his second-in-command, Lieutenant Caxmore. The younger Zephyrian's scales were still bright green, showing his inexperience. Veterans like Vexthari had scales that had darkened to deep purple over decades of warfare. Vexthari studied the readings on his screen. The signals came from what appeared to be a research station in the northern continent. The energy signatures showed primitive technology, nothing that could threaten a Zephyrian battle group. "What species built this station?" Vexthari asked. "Unknown, sir. Our scouts report they call themselves humans. They appear to be new to this sector. No military presence detected." Vexthari's mouth curved in what humans might call a smile, though it showed rows of sharp teeth. New species always think they can claim territory without asking permission. "How many soldiers do they have down there?" Intelligence suggests fewer than 50 individuals, mostly scientists and researchers. They have basic kinetic weapons and simple energy shields. Pathetic. Vexthari turned to address his bridge crew. "Prepare the assault shuttles. We will teach these humans how the galaxy really works. Take prisoners for the arena games. The Empire always needs fresh entertainment." The bridge erupted in cheers. Zephyrian warriors live for combat, especially against weaker opponents who could not fight back effectively. It had been months since their last conquest, and the crew was eager for action. As the assault shuttles launched toward the planet's surface, Vexthari reviewed what little information they had gathered about humans. They were bipedal mammals, smaller than Zephyrians, with only 2 arms and soft skin instead of protective scales. Their technology seemed centuries behind Empire standards. They had no energy weapons, no particle shields, and their fastest ships barely reached half the speed of light. "Sir, we are detecting additional signals from the planet," Caxmore reported. "The humans appear to be trying to contact someone. Block all communications. We do not want them calling for help before we can secure the facility." Vexthari watched through his shuttle's cameras as they approached the human research station. The buildings were simple metal and ceramic structures, functional but lacking the impressive architecture that showed true power. A few small vehicles moved between the buildings, and he could see tiny figures running around in apparent panic. "Look how they scatter like insects," laughed Caxmore. "This will be over in minutes." The first shuttle landed in the station's main courtyard, and Zephyrian shock troops poured out. Their heavy armor clanked against the ground as they advanced on the main building. Energy blasts from their weapons punched through the human defenses like they were made of paper. Vexthari's shuttle touched down moments later. He stepped out into the alien air, breathing through his environmental suit. The gravity was lighter than he preferred, but manageable. The sounds of battle echoed from nearby buildings as his troops rounded up the humans. "Commander, we have captured 23 prisoners," reported squad leader Jiktash over the communication system. 17 are civilians, 6 appear to be security personnel. They offered minimal resistance. "Any casualties on our side?" "None, sir. Their weapons could not penetrate our armor." Vexthari nodded. This was exactly what he had expected. Another weak species learning their place in the galactic order. He walked toward the main research building, stepping over scattered human equipment and broken furniture. Inside, he found his troops guarding a group of humans who sat on the floor with their hands secured behind their backs. The creatures looked even more fragile in person. Their skin was pale and soft, their eyes wide with fear. One of them, a female with brown hair, kept looking toward a communication console that sparked with damaged electronics. "You," Vexthari pointed at the female human. "You appear to be in charge. What is your name?" The human lifted her head and spoke in a voice that trembled slightly. "Dr. Sarah Chun. I am the lead researcher for this expedition. Dr. Chun, you and your people have built this facility on Zephyrian territory without permission. This planet now belongs to the Empire. You will cooperate with our mining operations, or you will be sold as slaves in the Outer Rim markets." Dr. Chun's eyes hardened, and she looked directly at Vexthari. "This planet was uninhabited when we arrived. We have committed no crimes." Vexthari felt a moment of surprise. Most species begged for mercy at this point. They offered tribute, promised cooperation, anything to avoid enslavement or death. This human female spoke as if she had rights, as if her opinion mattered. "Your crimes are irrelevant," he replied. "The strong take what they want. The weak accept their fate. This is how the galaxy has always worked." "Help will come," Dr. Chun said quietly. "You should leave while you still can." Several Zephyrian soldiers laughed at this statement. Caxmore stepped forward, raising his weapon. "Should I silence this one, Commander?" Vexthari raised one of his 4 hands to stop him. "No, let her speak. I am curious about this help she expects." He turned back to Dr. Chun. "Tell me, human, who do you think will rescue you? Your species has no military ships in this sector." Dr. Chun was quiet for several seconds, then looked up at him again. "The Corps is coming. You have no idea what that means." "This Corps you speak of, another research team? Perhaps some local militia?" Vexthari found the human's confidence amusing. "How many soldiers could your primitive species possibly field? A few hundred? A few thousand?" The human woman said nothing, but something in her expression made Vexthari feel uneasy. She looked sad, almost sorry for him. As if she knew something he did not. He pushed the feeling aside. Fear was weakness, and he was Zephyrian. He had conquered 17 different species and never lost a single battle. Whatever these humans were planning, it would not matter. By the time any help arrived, the planet would be stripped of its resources, and the humans would be long gone, sold to the highest bidder in the slave markets. The Empire had ruled for 3,000 years. Nothing would change that now. 3 hours after the attack began, Vexthari surveyed his conquest. The human research station was now under complete Zephyrian control. His soldiers had secured all buildings and established defensive positions around the perimeter. The humans sat in groups under heavy guard, their hands bound with energy restraints that would deliver painful shocks if they tried to escape. Yet, something bothered the Zephyrian commander. This victory felt different from his previous conquests. When the Empire attacked other species, they typically surrendered immediately once they realized resistance was hopeless. These humans had done something unexpected. They kept fighting even when they knew they would lose. During the assault, Zephyrian soldiers had to breach each building separately. The humans inside the barricaded doors set up defensive positions and continued shooting their primitive weapons even when their energy shields failed. Most strange of all, the civilian researchers had tried to protect each other instead of saving themselves. "Commander, the interrogation specialist has arrived," announced Caxmore. Vexthari walked to the main research building, where Interrogator Vraction was setting up his equipment. The Zephyrian specialist in breaking resistance was famous throughout the Empire for his ability to extract information from any prisoner. His tools used a combination of pain, fear, and psychological pressure that had never failed. "Begin with the leader," Lextari ordered. "Find out what military forces this species possesses and where they are located." Dr. Sarah Chen was brought in and secured to the interrogation chair. The device would monitor her vital signs while applying carefully controlled amounts of discomfort. Rakshan activated the machine and began his work. "Tell me about your military capabilities," the interrogator demanded. "How many warships does your species control?" Dr. Chun gritted her teeth as the machine sent waves of pain through her nervous system. "I'm a scientist. I don't have that information. You mentioned help was coming. What kind of help?" "You'll find out soon enough." Rakshan increased the intensity. Most species broke within minutes, begging to provide any information that would stop the pain. Dr. Chun closed her eyes and remained silent. For 2 hours, the interrogation continued. Rakshan used every technique in his arsenal, but the human woman refused to reveal anything useful. She spoke only to warn them again that they should leave while they could. "This is most unusual," Rakshan reported to Vexthari privately. "Her species appears to have unusual resistance to psychological pressure. However, I did learn something interesting from monitoring her reactions." "What?" "When she speaks of this course, her vital signs show no deception. She genuinely believes they represent a significant threat to us. Either her species has effective military propaganda, or there is something we do not understand about their capabilities." Vexthari considered this information. He had conquered species that outnumbered the Zephyrians by millions, others that had superior technology or natural advantages. None of it mattered when faced with Zephyrian military doctrine and discipline. Whatever these humans were hiding, it could not be enough to challenge the Empire. That evening, as Vexthari reviewed intelligence reports in his temporary command post, Lieutenant Caxmore approached with additional prisoners. "Sir, we found something unusual. This human was among the research staff, but he carries military identification." The human in question was a large male with short-cut hair and scars on his hands that suggested combat experience. Unlike the other prisoners, he did not seem afraid. He watched the Zephyrians with calculating eyes, as if he was studying them. "State your name and purpose," Lextari demanded. "Corporal Miguel Rodriguez, Terran Colonial Marines, assigned to Embassy Security Detail." "Embassy Security? You were guarding diplomats?" "Something like that." Rodriguez's voice was calm, almost casual. "Though my real job was making sure nothing happened to these scientists." Vexthari felt that uncomfortable sensation again. This human soldier spoke as if the situation was temporary, as if rescue was certain rather than hoped for. "Your military identification means nothing here," Vexthari told him. "You are now a prisoner of the Zephyrian Empire." Rodriguez shrugged. "That's what the last bunch said." "What last bunch?" "The Crathuri warlords who tried to raid our mining colony on Titan. The Scalorian pirates who attacked our trade convoy near Europa. The Thaxian slavers who thought human children would make good merchandise." Rodriguez looked directly at Vexthari. "They all learned the same lesson you're about to learn." Caxmore stepped forward angrily. "You dare threaten us? Your species has no warships in this sector." "We don't need warships," Rodriguez replied quietly. "We have Marines." Over the next 2 days, more strange things happened. The human prisoners continued to show no signs of breaking under pressure. They shared food with each other, took care of injured companions, and refused to provide information about their military capabilities. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to be preparing for something. Vexthari noticed that the humans had begun organizing themselves according to some invisible hierarchy. Dr. Chun appeared to be in overall command, but Rodriguez had taken charge of what seemed like defensive preparations. The Marine moved carefully around the detention area, studying guard rotations and security procedures. "Sir, I recommend we transfer the prisoners to the flagship," suggested Caxmore. "They are planning something." "Let them plan," Vexthari replied. "What could they possibly do? They have no weapons, no tools, no way to communicate with the outside. Even if they somehow manage to overpower their guards, they are stranded on a planet controlled by our forces." But that night, Vexthari found himself unable to sleep. He kept thinking about Dr. Chun's expression when she warned him to leave. There had been genuine sadness in her eyes, as if she felt sorry for him. No prisoner had ever looked at him that way before. The next morning brought new developments. Long-range sensors detected energy signatures at the edge of the star system. Multiple contacts, moving fast and heading directly for Kepler-4 42b. Analysis? Vexthari demanded. "Unknown ship types," reported the sensor operator. "Energy signatures are unlike anything in our database. They appear to be using some form of advanced propulsion we have not encountered before." "How many ships?" "At least 12, possibly more. They are maintaining formation and heading directly for our position." Vexthari felt his scales darken slightly, a Zephyrian response to stress. Battle stations. Prepared to defend the planet. As alarms sounded throughout the Zephyrian base, Rodriguez looked up from where he sat with the other prisoners. For the first time since his capture, the Marine smiled. "Game time," he said quietly to Dr. Chun. "Are you ready?" She asked. Rodriguez nodded. "Been ready since day one. Time to show these lizards what the course is all about." In orbit above the planet, the first Terran Marine assault ships dropped out of hyperspace. They moved with mechanical precision, their black hulls absorbing sensor scans and deflecting targeting systems. No communications were transmitted. No demands were made. The Marines had arrived, and they had come to collect their own. Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Thompson stood in the command center of the assault ship Retribution, watching tactical displays show the planet below. His scarred face remained expressionless as intelligence reports flowed across the screens. 23 human prisoners held by hostile forces. Research station captured. Enemy strength estimated at battalion level with orbital support. The mission was simple. Get the scientists out and teach the aliens why attacking humans was a bad idea. Thompson had been doing similar missions for 15 years. Ever since he joined the Terran Colonial Marines after the Europa Ice Wars, he had earned his nickname, Reaper, during the Titan Rebellion, where his unit held off 3,000 enemy soldiers for 6 days until reinforcements arrived. "Colonel, we have visual confirmation of enemy positions," reported his intelligence officer, Captain Elena Vasquez. "Zephyrian Empire forces. Approximately 800 soldiers on the ground, with 4 heavy cruisers providing orbital support." Thompson studied the enemy ship formations. The Zephyrian vessels were larger than Marine assault ships, with more powerful weapons and thicker armor. In a direct confrontation, they would have significant advantages. Fortunately, Marines did not believe in direct confrontations. Status of our people on the ground? Alive and unharmed, according to long-range scans. They appear to be held in the main research building. We also have confirmation that Corporal Rodriguez is with them. Thompson nodded. Rodriguez was one of his best soldiers, a veteran who specialized in deep reconnaissance and sabotage. If he was on the ground, the enemy was already in more trouble than they realized. "Begin Phase 1, Thompson ordered. "All units, execute operation." Smokescreen. The Marine battle plan had been developed during the 3-day journey to Do. Kepler-4 42b. Intelligence, suggested the Zephyrians, were typical military supremacists who relied on superior firepower and intimidation to win battles. They had probably never faced an opponent that could match their technological capabilities, while exceeding their tactical flexibility. Phase 1 began with what appeared to be a conventional orbital bombardment. Marine ships opened fire on Zephyrian military targets, using precision-guided missiles to destroy weapon emplacements, communication arrays, and vehicle depots. To the aliens below, it looked like a standard softening attack, the foreground assault. What they could not see was the true purpose of the bombardment. Each missile carried advanced electronic warfare packages that deployed microscopic sensors and jammers throughout the target zone. Within minutes, the Marines had a complete picture of enemy positions while simultaneously blinding Zephyrian sensors. Phase 1 complete, reported Vasquez. Enemy communications are down 40%. Their orbital ships are moving to defensive positions. Begin Phase 2. The second phase looked like disaster for the Marines. Zephyrian cruisers opened fire on the human ships, their massive energy cannons scoring several direct hits. One Marine vessel appeared to suffer critical damage and began falling toward the planet's atmosphere. Commander Vexthari watched the battle from his command post on the surface, feeling satisfied as his ships drove off the human attackers. The enemy vessels were smaller and less heavily armed than he had feared. This would be over quickly. Sir, the damaged human ship is going down in the northern forest, approximately 20 kilometers from our position, reported Lieutenant Caxmore. Send a recovery team to capture survivors, Vexthari ordered. We need prisoners for interrogation about human military capabilities. What Vexthari did not realize was that the damaged ship was actually executing a controlled insertion. As it fell through the atmosphere, its hull split apart to reveal dozens of drop pods. Each pod contained a fully equipped Marine fire team, complete with enough equipment to operate independently for weeks. The pods scattered across a wide area around the research station, using atmospheric interference and electronic countermeasures to avoid detection. They landed in forests, ravines, and abandoned mining sites, places where Marines could establish concealed positions and begin their real work. Phase 3 started 30 minutes later, as Zephyrian patrols began to disappear. The first indication of trouble came when a sick soldier reconnaissance team failed to report in. Their last transmission was a confused message about movement in the forest, then silence. A larger patrol sent to investigate found only empty equipment and signs of a struggle. Sir, we have lost contact with 3 more patrols, Caxmore reported, his voice showing the first signs of concern. Something is hunting our troops in the forest. Vexthari studied the tactical display, trying to understand what was happening. The human ships in orbit had pulled back after taking damage, but ground sensors were detecting strange readings all around the research station. Energy signatures appeared and disappeared seemingly at random, and communication with outlying units became increasingly difficult. Deploy the heavy armor. Send out the hunter-killer teams with full sensor arrays. The Zephyrian response was predictable. More firepower, larger patrols, heavier equipment. They sent out tracked vehicles armed with energy cannons and missile systems, accompanied by full companies of infantry in powered armor. The alien force was still superior in numbers and equipment, but they were fighting an enemy they could not see or understand. The Marines had been training for this type of warfare for decades. Every conflict in human space had taught them new lessons about fighting technologically superior opponents. They used stealth, mobility, and superior coordination to turn the aliens' advantages against them. Sergeant First Class David Park led Alpha Squad through the forest surrounding the research station. His team moved like ghosts, using advanced camouflage systems and careful noise discipline to remain invisible. They carried weapons designed for precision rather than raw power, each shot calculated to achieve maximum effect. Target acquired, whispered Corporal Jennifer Hayes over the squad communication system. Zephyrian patrol, 6 soldiers, heading northwest toward Checkpoint 3. Parks studied the enemy through his rifle scope. The aliens moved in standard formation, checking their sensors regularly, but clearly unsure what they were looking for. Their equipment was impressive, but they lacked the fieldcraft that came from fighting desperate battles against impossible odds. "Take them," Park ordered. The attack lasted less than 10 seconds. 6 precisely aimed shots from concealed positions dropped the entire Zephyrian patrol before they could return fire. Alpha Squad disappeared back into the forest before enemy reinforcements could arrive, leaving behind only empty ground and confused alien commanders. Similar scenes played out across the battlefield as Marine units struck at Zephyrian forces and melted away. Communication lines were cut. Supply convoys were ambushed. Command posts were infiltrated and sabotaged. The aliens found themselves fighting shadows that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once. "Sir, we have lost contact with over half our ground forces," Caxmore reported. His scales had turned pale green with stress. "The humans appear to have landed a significant force, but we cannot locate their positions." Vexthari felt something he had never experienced in 30 years of warfare: confusion. His forces possessed overwhelming advantages in firepower, numbers, and technology. Yet they were being systematically destroyed by an enemy they could not even see. Activate emergency protocols. Recall all patrols to defensive positions around the research station. As night fell over Kepler-4 42b, the Marines prepared for Phase 4. Thompson watched from his command ship as reports flowed in from teams across the battlefield. The enemy was consolidating their forces exactly as predicted, pulling back to defend their most important asset, the human prisoners. "All teams report ready for final assault," Vasquez announced. Thompson looked at the tactical display one more time. Everything was in position. The aliens had been reduced, confused, and forced into a defensive posture. Now it was time to finish the job. "All units, begin Phase 4. Execute Operation Thunder." In the forest around the research station, Marines began deploying their final surprise: advanced smoke and aerosol generators that would create a fog bank covering several square kilometers. The aliens would soon learn why Terran Marines were known throughout human space as the masters of close-quarters battle. The smoke began to rise as Thompson gave his final order: "Time to bring our people home." The fog rolled in like a living thing, thick and gray and wrong. Vexthari watched from his command post as the artificial mist engulfed the entire research station, reducing visibility to mere meters. His sensors screamed warnings about electromagnetic interference, chemical compounds, and energy signatures that made no sense. "Sir, we are receiving multiple contact alerts from all sectors," reported Lieutenant Caxmore, his voice tight with fear. "Movement detected throughout the perimeter, but we cannot get clear readings through this. Whatever this is." Vexthari studied his tactical display, watching as contact markers appeared and disappeared like ghosts. The humans had somehow created a battlefield environment that neutralized every Zephyrian technological advantage. Their energy weapons could not acquire targets they could not see. Their armor meant nothing against enemies that struck from unexpected directions. All units maintain defensive positions. Do not break formation. The first scream came from the eastern perimeter, where squad leader Bregtesh commanded 20 elite shock troopers. His final transmission was a confused shout about shapes moving in the mist. Then the communication line went dead. When Vexthari tried to raise other units in that sector, he found only static dot inside the detention facility. Corporal Rodriguez felt the familiar vibration of Marine dropships passing overhead. He had been counting the hours since the first orbital bombardment, tracking the progress of the assault through subtle changes in guard behavior and enemy communications. The Zephyrians were scared, though they tried to hide it. "Get ready," he whispered to Dr. Chun and the other prisoners. "Company's coming." The research team leader looked at Rodriguez with concern. "What should we do? When I give the signal, everyone get down and stay down. Keep your heads covered and don't look up no matter what you hear." Rodriguez had served with some of the Marines who were out there in the fog. He knew what they were capable of when properly motivated, and nothing motivated Marines like protecting civilians who could not protect themselves. The attack on the main building came without warning. One moment, Zephyrian guards were nervously watching the windows and doorways. The next moment, those same windows exploded inward as armored figures dropped from the ceiling and burst through the walls. Captain Elena Vasquez led the assault team with surgical precision. Her squad moved through the building like liquid death, each Marine covering specific angles and sectors. Their weapons made soft coughing sounds as they fired, using advanced suppressors and low signature ammunition to avoid giving away positions. The Zephyrian guards never had time to react. They had been trained to fight conventional battles against enemies, who announced their presence with heavy weapons and war cries. These humans moved like predators, silent and efficient and utterly ruthless in their professional violence. "Package secured," Vasquez reported into a radio as she reached the detention area. "All civilians accounted for and unharmed." Rodriguez was already moving, cutting the energy restraints off other prisoners with a knife that appeared from nowhere. "Ma'am, Corporal Rodriguez, 3rd Battalion. Ready to rejoin the party." "Outstanding, Corporal. Your intelligence reports were very helpful." Vasquez handed him a combat rifle and equipment pack. "Colonel Thompson sends his regards." The rescue operation took less than 3 minutes. The Marines evacuated all 23 human prisoners through routes they had scouted during the previous days of harassment. By the time Zephyrian reinforcements arrived at the detention facility, they found only empty rooms and the bodies of their comrades. Vexthari received the news with growing desperation. His prisoners were gone, his communications were disrupted, and his forces were being systematically destroyed by an enemy he could barely detect. Nothing in his military training had prepared him for this type of warfare. "Sir, we are detecting movement in the main courtyard," reported one of his surviving communications officers. "Multiple contacts approaching the command center." Vexthari grabbed his personal weapon and moved to the building's main entrance. Through the swirling fog, he could see shapes moving with purpose and coordination. They were larger than he expected, armored figures that seemed to glide through the mist without making sound. The first Marine to emerge from the fog was Sergeant First Class David Park. His rifle held a ready position and his visor reflecting the alien lighting. Behind him came the rest of Alpha Squad, their weapons trained on the Zephyrian positions with mechanical precision. "Surrender your weapons and prepare for prisoner processing," Park announced in accented but clear Zephyrian. "Resistance will be met with overwhelming force." Vexthari felt his world collapse around him. These humans were not the primitive savages he had expected. Their equipment was advanced beyond anything in Zephyrian arsenals. Their tactics were sophisticated and professional. Most importantly, they fought with a cold efficiency that spoke of extensive combat experience against technologically superior opponents. "I am Commander Vexthari of the Zephyrian 3rd Fleet," he replied, trying to maintain some dignity. "I demand to speak with your commanding officer." "You'll get your chance," Park said. "Drop your weapons and step away from the console." Around the courtyard, more Marines appeared from the fog. They moved in coordinated teams, covering each other and securing positions with practiced ease. Vexthari counted at least 30 soldiers, all equipped with gear that made his own forces look like primitives. The most disturbing part was their behavior. These humans showed no emotion, no excitement from victory, no anger over the captured civilians. They treated the entire operation as routine business, another day at the office. How many times had they done this? How many other species had underestimated them the same way? Sir, all remaining Zephyrian forces have surrendered or been neutralized, reported Lieutenant Colonel Thompson as he strode through the mist. The Marine commander was exactly what Vexthari had feared. A professional soldier with decades of experience written in his scars and bearing. Colonel Thompson, I presume? Vexthari said, setting down his weapon. That's correct. You're under arrest for kidnapping, assault on non-combatants, and violation of galactic territorial sovereignty. Thompson's voice was calm and matter-of-fact. Your surviving personnel will be treated according to standard prisoner of war conventions. Vexthari felt a bitter laugh escape his throat. Conventions? You speak of conventions after decimating my forces? Your forces attacked unarmed civilians and took prisoners for entertainment purposes, Thompson replied. We responded with appropriate force to secure the release of those prisoners. The fact that your military was unprepared for competent opposition is not our responsibility. As the fog began to clear, Vexthari saw the full scope of the human victory. Marine teams were securing equipment, treating wounded Zephyrians, and establishing control of the entire facility. Their casualties appeared to be zero. His own forces had been reduced from 800 soldiers to fewer than 200 survivors. How? Vexthari asked. How did you achieve this? We outnumber you, outgunned you, had superior position and orbital support. Thompson looked at him with something that might have been pity. You made the same mistake everyone makes when they fight Marines for the first time. You assumed that bigger weapons and more soldiers would guarantee victory. What did we miss? Experience, Thompson said simply. We've been fighting impossible battles for centuries. Every conflict teaches us something new about winning when the odds are against us. You picked a fight with a species that learned to survive by being better at war than everyone else. Dr. Chun appeared at Thompson's side, escorted by 2 Marines. She looked at Vexthari with that same expression of sadness he had seen during her interrogation. I tried to warn you, she said quietly. I really am sorry it came to this. Vexthari realized with growing horror that this human female had known exactly what would happen from the moment his forces landed. She had not been hoping for rescue. She had been certain of it. The confidence he had mistaken for bravado had been simple knowledge of what Terran Marines were capable of accomplishing. As Zephyrian prisoners were processed and prepared for transport, Vexthari began to understand the true scope of his mistake. He had not simply lost a battle. He had provided the galaxy with a demonstration of human military capabilities that would change everything. The balance of power was shifting, and the Zephyrian Empire was no longer at the top. Vexthari knelt in the ruins of his command post, watching Terran Marines secure the battlefield with mechanical efficiency. The fog had cleared, revealing the complete scope of his defeat. Zephyrian equipment lay scattered and destroyed, while human forces moved through the area like they owned it. Which, he realized, they now did. Lieutenant Colonel Thompson stood nearby, speaking into a communication device with calm professionalism. Retribution Control. This is Thompson. Objective secured. Civilians recovered. Hostile forces neutralized. Requesting diplomatic transport for prisoner transfer. The Marine commander approached Vexthari, his expression neutral but not unkind. Commander, you're going to be transferred to a prisoner facility while we sort out the political details. Your wounded are receiving medical attention, and your surviving personnel will be repatriated once negotiations are complete. Negotiations? Vexthari looked up in confusion. You are not simply going to execute us. Thompson seemed genuinely surprised by the question. Why would we do that? You're prisoners of war, not criminals. Though I should mention that taking civilian hostages for arena games might complicate your legal situation. Vexthari felt his understanding of reality shift again. Throughout Zephyrian space, defeated enemies were enslaved, executed, or sold to the highest bidder. The concept of treating prisoners humanely was so foreign that he had no reference point for understanding it. "I do not comprehend," he admitted. "We attacked your people. We took your civilians prisoner. We intended to sell them as slaves. Why would you show mercy?" "Because we're not you," Thompson replied simply. "The fact that you can't understand that distinction is exactly why this happened." Dr. Chun appeared at Thompson's side. No longer the helpless prisoner Vexthari remembered. She carried herself with quiet confidence, and the Marines around her showed clear deference to her authority. He realized that she had probably been in communication with human forces throughout her captivity, providing intelligence and coordination for the rescue operation. "Dr. Chen will be returning to her research," Thompson continued, "along with a rather larger security detachment. I suspect your government will want to establish formal diplomatic relations before anyone else decides. To test human resolve, my government." "Vax." Thari's voice trailed off as he considered the implications. He would have to report this disaster to Zephyrian High Command, explaining how a single human research station had destroyed an entire battle group. The political consequences would be severe. "Commander, I need you to understand something important," Dr. Chun said, kneeling beside him. "What happened here was not a demonstration of human aggression. This was us showing restraint." Vexthari looked at the destruction around him. "Restraint? Colonel Thompson's Marines could have eliminated your entire force within the first hour of landing. Instead, they spent 3 days minimizing casualties while achieving their objectives. They gave your soldiers every opportunity to surrender before engaging them. Why? Because that's who we are," Thompson answered. "We don't fight to prove how strong we are. We fight to protect what matters to us. When you threatened our civilians, you forced us to respond. But we don't take pleasure in killing, and we don't continue fighting once our objectives are met." Vexthari thought about the battles he had witnessed. The professional efficiency of the Marine assault, the careful medical treatment being provided to Zephyrian wounded. These humans possessed overwhelming military superiority, but they used it with surgical precision rather than brutal excess. "I must ask," Vexthari said slowly, "how many worlds has your species conquered?" Thompson and Dr. Chun exchanged glances. "None," Dr. Chun replied. "We don't conquer worlds. We explore them, study them, sometimes establish colonies on uninhabited planets. But we don't take territory from other species." "Then why do you possess such military capabilities?" "Because the galaxy is a dangerous place," Thompson said. "There are species like yours who believe that might makes right. There are pirates, slavers, and warlords who prey on the weak. Someone has to be ready to stand up to them." As Zephyrian prisoners were loaded onto Marine transport ships, Vexthari found himself studying the human soldiers. They moved with quiet professionalism, treating their captives with careful courtesy while maintaining absolute security. No one was mistreated, but no one was allowed to doubt who was in control. "Commander Vexthari," Thompson said, approaching for what appeared to be a final conversation, "I'm going to give you something that most of your people won't get. A complete tactical analysis of this engagement." Thompson handed him a datapad containing detailed breakdowns of every phase of the Marine assault. Weapon specifications, tactical doctrines, unit organization, everything the Zephyrian military would need to understand what they had faced. "Why?" Vexthari asked, accepting the device. "Because knowledge prevents wars," Thompson replied. "When your government understands what actually happened here, they'll realize that fighting humans is a losing proposition. Not because we're stronger than you, but because we're better at this than you are." "Better at war?" "Better at winning wars without destroying everything we're fighting for," Dr. Chen clarified. "Your species conquers through intimidation and overwhelming force. You rule through fear. That approach works until you encounter someone who isn't afraid of you. Thompson nodded. Humans learned a long time ago that the most dangerous enemy is one with nothing left to lose. We fought desperate battles against impossible odds so many times that we've become very good at it. When you attacked our civilians, you made the fight personal. That was a mistake. Vexthari was loaded onto a prisoner transport ship along with his surviving officers. As the vessel lifted off from Kepler 442b, he watched through the viewports as Marine forces established a permanent presence around the research station. Human warships had arrived to provide orbital security, sleek vessels that moved with predatory grace. 3 days later, Vexthari found himself in a comfortable detention facility on a human space station, preparing to transmit his report to Zephyrian High Command. The message would change everything. Humanity was not another primitive species ripe for conquest. They were apex predators who had learned to combine devastating military capability with moral restraint. "I command. This is Commander Vexthari, 3rd Fleet." He began his transmission. "I must report a complete strategic failure in the Kepler 442 system. Human military forces demonstrated capabilities far beyond our initial estimates. Recommend immediate diplomatic contact and negotiation of non-aggression treaties." He paused, thinking about everything he had witnessed. Personal note to Supreme Commander: do not underestimate this species. They fight like Zephyrians, but they think like something else entirely. They are predators who choose when and how to use their strength. This makes them far more dangerous than any enemy we have previously encountered. 2 weeks later, news of the Kepler 442 incident had spread throughout the galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire quietly opened diplomatic channels with human authorities, seeking to establish formal relations and territorial agreements. Other aggressive species began reconsidering their expansion plans, particularly those that had been eyeing human-claimed systems. Dr. Sarah Chun returned to her research, now protected by a full marine security detachment. She often thought about Commander Vexthari and hoped he had learned something valuable from their encounter. The galaxy was large enough for many species to coexist peacefully, if they could learn to respect each other's boundaries. Lieutenant Colonel Thompson was promoted and assigned to establish the first permanent marine base in the Outer Rim territories. His mission was simple: ensure that what happened at Kepler 442b never happened again, by making it clear that humanity would respond to aggression with overwhelming but disciplined force. In Zephyrian space, military academies began teaching new courses on asymmetric warfare and human tactical doctrine. The lesson was clear: technological superiority meant nothing against an opponent who understood how to fight smarter rather than harder. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted, not through conquest or intimidation, but through demonstration. Humanity had announced its presence on the galactic stage by showing that they were capable of both tremendous violence and remarkable restraint. They could fight like apex predators when necessary, but they chose to act like civilized beings when possible. The Terran Marines had emerged from the smoke, and the galaxy would never be the same.